Welcome back to Sailing Garuda and to the Berry Islands. Man, did we have a rough time getting here. Kind of bucking around a little, but maybe not so much a bronco, kind of like a bucking pony. Right, it's 1 a.m. Heather's not doing very well right now. But now that we're here, we're really enjoying some much-needed recovery time. Nearly 30 keys and over 100 small islands make up the Berries, most of which are uninhabited. But during the winter season, these islands are a popular destination for snowbird second-home residents. Even Hollywood has a long history here. Homes owned by Cary Grant, Douglas Fairbanks, Bridget Bardot, Telly Savalas, and the Rat Pack, where the difficulty reaching the Berries and the lack of infrastructure keeps things pretty low-key. Over time, the star here has faded. Drug trafficking in the 80s ran most investment away and hurricanes damaged the rest. But due to seasonal residents, the Berry Islands still claims to have more resident millionaires per unit area than any other place in the world. As for us, well, we're in recovery mode, repairing the radar reflector, restocking the pantry, and cleaning things up. Then out of the marina for some budget-friendly time on anchor, and to settle into the cruising life.
Shelling Beach or Shark Creek.
I'm Herb, and this is Heather. We're post-career empty nesters who found the next phase of our lives lacking. Inspired by other YouTubers, we bought a small fixer-upper sailboat and spent 2 years building her into our traveling home. Now we're about to find out if it was all worthwhile. Subscribe and come along on our next adventure as we set sails to rediscover what's really necessary to live a meaningful life.
The wind into myself, away from things I let go, floating on the waves. We go bottoms up, we go all the way. When you're feeling down, push the pain away. We go bottoms up.
Our first destination in the Berries is Queens Bay. As the crow flies, it's only about a mile or so from the marina, but it's an 18-mile sail around to the other side of the island. The sailing life is still new to me, but one of the things that I'm struggling with is adjusting to the tempo of a life at sea. The weather, the sea state, even the geography seems to shift from one extreme to another. Here's a good example. As rough as the crossing was, look how peaceful that same water is today. Little Stirrup and Great Stirrup Keys cap the northern Berries. There's a lot of history here, but they're private islands now, owned by Royal Caribbean and Norwegian cruise lines respectively. And if you've cruised on either, you've likely visited one of these sun and fun destinations. Another example of adjusting to the tempo is how unexpectedly busy things can be. Maybe it's the allure of the Bahamas. Maybe it's just the season for it. Or maybe the popularity of sailing is growing, or even cruising. I don't really know. But there was a part of my imagination where living remotely would include, well, being alone, or even partially alone. After a few days in Queens Bay, we hauled anchor and headed for Hoffman's Key, which has a small trail to an inland blue hole. Our target is a narrow spot of water between rocky shores with limited anchoring space. So when we arrived to find 7 boats squeezed into this small space, well, we decided to simply move on. Plan B was a small patch of sand near the southern end of Little Harbor Key. There's really nothing here, except for the legendary Flo's Conch Shack, a lonely outpost serving seafood and rum punch to travelers in the know. But when we arrived, we found 3 large motor yachts and a catamaran, leaving us very little room, especially to peacefully set the hook and leave the boat unattended for an excursion. Plan C, it was the last we had considered before leaving, was Alder's Key. It's a private island, so we can't go ashore, but there's plenty of sand and a beautiful view. Oh, and no other boats. I would say it was a bust of a day, but with an anchorage like this, who am I to complain? We've been in the Bahamas a little over a month now, and while we're definitely getting more adjusted, there are still a few things that we need. So we departed Alder's Key the next morning, bound for New Providence and Nassau Harbor for a refueling of sorts. The winds were light but steady, and we enjoyed another peaceful sea state as we motor sailed south. Yep, it's like taxiing at an international airport. Nassau is quite a city. If I was feeling crowded looking for an anchorage, well, that's nothing compared to the people here in the capital city. A huge cruise ship terminal, international airport, casinos, beach resorts, water parks, and all of Pleasure Island make Nassau a destination all into itself. I'm a bit of a history buff, if you haven't noticed, and Nassau is certainly no disappointment. I particularly like the colonial architecture. This is Fort Montague, built in 1742 to defend Nassau Harbor. It's also the location of the first successful amphibious assault by the U.S. Marine Corps, and it has seen action against the Spanish and even fired on the American Confederates. Near the center of town lies the Queen Steps. 66 steps hewn by hand out of solid limestone by slaves somewhere around 1793, and is certainly a unique architectural feature. It's very different with the cruise ships here.
Yeah.
They seem to be coming down the stairs as opposed to going up. Yeah. I guess that's easier for them.
Christopher Columbus came out of jail and walked in and told the world that he was coming to
At the top of the hill is another fort, Fort Fincastle, built by Lord Dunmore, the Viscount of Fincastle. Yeah, he named it after himself. My imagination is just taken by this royal governor, so indulge me. Nothing overly complicated or even romantic. He was a person just like you and I, with a family, a job, and no doubt aspirations and dreams. War was the business of his day, and his worries were certainly all about losing. I mean, who could blame him? His political career began rather notably when he was named the governor of the province of New York in 1770 and the colony of Virginia the following year. Imagine being the king's voice in the American colonies in the 1770s. In 6 short years, your colonists are furious about taxation without representation, throwing tea into the Boston Harbor and declaring their independence. Just for reference, when Patrick Henry said, "Give me liberty or give me death," he was talking to Lord Dunmore. There's even a street named after him in Norfolk, not because he was honored, but because it was the last place he stepped foot in America before being run off to sea. Just generally not a lovable guy. After England officially recognized the United States, Lord Dunmore's next royal post was the governor of the Bahamas. When he arrived, he found it nearly defenseless and immediately set out to build forts, much to the chagrin of the bookkeepers. For the remainder of his life, he argued with London, he argued with the Bahamians. I picture him as generally unhappy, but who really knows? Still, the evidence of his worries, the product of all the effort that he directed, remains. The walls of defense still stand, as do the cannons to ward away his fears. These aren't the originals, by the way. They went back to England totally unused. The Commonwealth didn't lose Nassau, per se. The Bahamas were granted independence 50 years ago, and history has all but forgotten Lord Dunmore's personal struggles, desires, and fears. Which makes me wonder, you got any worries like that? Boy, I know I used to. I all but stopped working because of it. But the details, they seem to be fading now, or at least a little hazy. My current duties include caring for my ship, making sure that her crew is safe. Secure on the dock in Nassau, I'm flying back to the States for a week. And we're getting a guest. Who are you?
I'm Heather's dad, Mark.
Maybe I'll find something new to worry about. In the meantime, give your worries a break. Maybe escape and watch a few more YouTube episodes. I mean, after all, that's exactly what got me here.
But I won't let the stormy seas throw me in open water. Let me have my peace and leave me till tomorrow. Wind into my sail, away from things I let go, floating on the waves. We go bottoms up, we go all the way. When you're feeling down,